Day. Happy Halloween, everybody. I hope that you all have some fun plans for tonight or after Colloquium to just go out and have some fun for a little bit. For those of you in the room, we do have popcorn and hot chocolate and candy as well. Please be sure to sign in using the QR codes in the very back. And for those of you on Zoom, I believe Elena has put the link in the chat for y'all to sign in on Zoom, on Argo Pulse as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker, and then I will turn the camera around so that Wendy can see everybody. And let me put this in. This is in speaker view. Okay, we're just going to see what happens. I can adjust the view once we get there. So our speaker for today is Wendi Davis, the Visitor Experience Manager with the UWF Historic Trust in Pensacola. Wendi has been a dedicated member of the trust team for over 14 years, contributing her expertise in membership, marketing, public programs, and exhibits. In her current role, she oversees visitor engagement across the Trust's museums and historic sites, ensuring that the stories of Pensacola's rich heritage are accessible, educational, and inspiring for audiences of all ages. Wendy's background includes serving as the curator of exhibits for the Pensacola Historical Society, where she helps to bring local history to life through creative and thoughtful exhibit design. She holds a master's degree in public history and a certificate in leadership in public service and nonprofit administration, both from UWF. In addition to her work with the UWF Historic Trust, Wendi serves as the secretary of the Museum Store Association's Florida chapter, contributing to the professional community of museum and cultural institution leaders across the state. Please welcome me, Erica. Please welcome me. I'm her here. Please join me in welcoming Wendi Davis.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. Hello.
So happy everyone's in costume. Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen so you can see my PowerPoint. All right, can y'all see the PowerPoint?
We can see it.
Okay, wonderful. Well, as Elizabeth said, I am Wendi Davis, the Visitor Experience Manager for the UWF Historic Trust. I have been coordinating our haunted house walking and trolley tours since 2006. So we have been haunting downtown Pensacola for 35 years. So what is a ghost? A ghost is the disembodied soul, the soul or spirit of a deceased person, a spirit appearing after death, an apparition, a spectator. Parapsychologists say a haunting can occur when a death is caused by some dramatic or violent event. These turbulent events may be unresolved or make a spirit unable to rest. So, who are the most well-known parapsychologists? This may age me, but the Ghostbusters, of course. So Pensacola's history is full of dramatic, violent, and turbulent times. The city's history begins with the destruction of the settlement. Tristan de Luna left Veracruz, Mexico with 13 ships on June 11, 1559. His purpose to establish a permanent settlement in the Bay of Acusi. The trip should have taken 2 weeks, but 63 days later, on August 15, 1559, the ships landed. Luna decided to leave what was left of the provisions on ships anchored in the bay until shelters could be constructed. Disaster happened. 4 days after arriving, a fierce hurricane ravaged the settlers. For 125 years, the Bay of Acusi was ignored until renewed interest in 1698. The British, the French, the Spanish all realized the importance of the potential of the bay. Each ruled the area, adding more to our story. In 1821, Andrew Jackson accepted the city from the Spanish. Pensacola was now a peaceful American city. Or was it? Peace in Pensacola was not what you'd think. As a port city, the city was dangerous. Sailors and fishermen from all over the world came to fish the abundant waters. Pensacola soon became named the Gloucester of the South, the red snapper capital of the world. 600 ships could be seen at port at any given time, and Pensacola was considered a good port, full of saloons and brothels. Fishermen didn't have to go far to spend their pay. Saloons were the best place to Shanghai sailors. If not in the saloons, then the brothels south of Government Street. Here's a story from the port. Bernard Rasmussen, a Norwegian fisherman, was the steward of the Norwegian ship Langford in 1901. One evening, while walking back to the ship docked at Muskogee Wharf, two masked strangers approached and shot Bernard. No words, no robbery, just murder. Pensacola was a good port for those who survived. For those who didn't, Pensacola became their port for eternity. Pensacola is full of ghosts, and there's several newspaper articles to attest to that. This one, Reverend H.S. Skanes, called at the news office last night and related a ghost story. He said that the night before, 10 minutes of 11, he was coming down East Government Street when, with a few doors of balconies and on the south side of Government, he saw in a little alleyway what he took to be an 8-foot tall woman without a head. The thing was dressed in white so dazzling as to affect his eyes. He approached and spoke to the thing, but no response. He turned to leave with fear and trembling. Immediately, he looked back and it had vanished without a sign or noise. What do you think it was? Archie Moonlight frightened Pensacolians in June 1888, according to the Pensacola Commercial. The firemen of the Germania Hose Company also suffered a fright. Today, it is the Quayside Gallery, but it was once the home of the Germania Hose Company, which was the first fire company organized in Pensacola after the Civil War. In 1892, a ghost visited the fire company and caused such a stir that the newspaper carried an account of the story the next day. The firemen of the Germania Hose Company slept in the building when they were on duty, and in the weeks before the ghostly encounter, the men had complained of hearing strange noises. They were often awakened by knocks, the sounds of heavy footsteps, and furnishings crashing to the floor. When they heard the sounds, they would lock the doors and check the entire building for rats, intruders, stray cats, anything. The presence was especially strong at the back door, which would creak and shake violently as the men watched. The firemen never found any reason for the strange noise and would nervously return to bed. As soon as they went back to sleep, the noises would start again. Now, this one night, after midnight, when all the doors were locked and the firemen were in bed, the back door began to rattle on, knocking and thumping noises moved all around the room. The men sleeping nearby immediately awakened just as they had before, but this night was different. As the men watched from their beds, a faint blue light appeared in the middle of the room, and then took the shadowy form of a man dressed all in white. The firemen were paralyzed with fear. As the ghost floated towards the room, the men cowered under their bed covers to avoid the ghost. The ghost approached each bed and put its icy hands on the face and neck of every fireman. The men remained in their beds, too terrified to move for at least half an hour. When they gathered the courage to look up again, the ghostly visitor was gone. This story is a longtime favorite. So this is the story of Thomas Moristo. The story goes that a young couple purchased this house and almost immediately began to hear someone walking around, slamming doors and windows found opened after they'd been closed, lights and water faucets turning on and off became nightly occurrences. The couple's pets would react to unseen forces. The television would turn on and off on a whim. Once, when the family was enjoying some music, an empty rocking chair rocked in time with the music. The curious lady of the house used her child's Ouija board to find out more about their household ghost. Anyone have one of these as a child? Pronounced Ouija. It was introduced in 1890. and it was regarded as a parlor game when businessman Elijah Bond had the idea to patent a planchette sold with a board on which the alphabet was printed, much like the talking boards or spirit boards used by spiritualists. The board repeatedly spelled out THOMASMORISTO 1718 1803. He said he was waiting for his fiancée. He was a corporal in the Spanish army and later a sea captain. Now, the name Moristo does appear on legal documents relating to the lot from the year 1781. Apparently, he had returned from a sea voyage to meet his fiancée here, but she was lost at sea. Now, Thomas has never left the house. After the original house was lost in a fire, a new, larger house was built on the lot. Thomas remains in the footprint of the original house. Whenever he is around, there is a sweet, musty smell. Now, later, another family even made a deal with Thomas. The story goes that they would close their bedroom doors at night so he could have the run of the house as long as he didn't frighten the children. And Thomas could also show his temper. The owner said that if anyone said ghosts weren't real, he would rip things off the walls, move them across the room, or even show himself. Now, when he did appear, he had dark hair and dark eyes, and is often seen wearing a high-necked white shirt with a cravat. He isn't very tall, and visitors have claimed over all these years to see Thomas in the upstairs windows during our ghost tours. Now, the Door House is now a part of historic Pensacola Village. It is one of our guided tour houses. Clara Garnier Vivienne Barclay Dorr built this house after her second husband, Eben Walker Dorr, died from yellow fever in 1870. She built the house in 1871 and remained in it until the 1890s. After the Dorr family left, it was a school for many years. This is my favorite picture. Do you see the weird guy in the window? Such a strange thing. But this is one house that makes some of our tour guides very uncomfortable. Dark shadows seen from the corner of the eye. Many years ago, a psychic medium visited the Dorr house as a tourist. She had also visited the Barclay house, which was the childhood home of Mrs. Dorr. Now, when the psychic saw a painting of the Dorr house hanging at the Barclay house, she commented that she wouldn't go there again because she was too frightened. She had been followed around, and a spirit kept saying, "I was murdered and nobody knows." Now, we have no evidence of a death at the Dorr house, but there was at the house next door. One of our tour guides was on a tour with two families, and she had just told the story of Thomas Moristo that I just shared with you, and they were walking back across Seville Square towards the Dorr house. The group was standing in the square ready to cross Adams Street. When everyone looked at the house, they saw a figure standing in the front of the window in the northeast corner. It was just a shadow figure, and it was looking at the group. It then turned towards the back of the house and disappeared into the darkness. The entire group saw the figure walk by the windows on the north side of the house and then disappear. Now, the same guide had another experience with another tour group just outside the Dorr house. It was standing on the side of the Dorr house talking about Old Christ Church. And I don't have a picture of this gate, so just imagine this white gate on the other side of the house. The entire group heard the gate at the Dorr house creak, a really scary horror movie kind of creak. The guide thought she was being pranked, so she continued telling the story louder until she realized everyone on the tour group was staring at the gate. The guide felt it was still a prank. The Dorr house was being painted, and she thought maybe someone had left the gate unlocked. That is until she came back from her tour and spoke to the staff member who closed up the Dorr house that day, and they confirmed the gate was locked for the night as usual. The guide went back to double check, and the gate had been locked. The Barclay House is another one of our houses. This one is rented for weddings and parties and receptions. Now, this is the house Clara, as I mentioned, Clara Garnier Vivian Barclay Dorr grew up in. This house was built in 1827 by George Barclay and his French-born wife, Clara. The Barclays were wealthy and had 7 children and many slaves. When the Barclays lived in the property, contained not only this house, but a separate kitchen, smokehouse, slave quarters, and privy. Some of these buildings, such as the kitchen house, were rebuilt a few years ago. As I mentioned, now the house is part of our rentals program, so you can rent it for a wedding, reception, those kind of things. A previous owner, though, of the Barclay house regularly shared that she saw a beautiful Black woman in a brown calico dress walking through the upstairs rooms. The woman appeared to be in her 30s and walked with perfect posture. Now, we also have stories from Ruth, who grew up in the Barclay house in the 1930s when it was a boarding house. A hallway ran through the middle of the house, out the back porch where the bathroom was. There was only one door to access this room. One night, Ruth's mother, Nancy, went out to the bathroom, but a man in a straw hat went in before her. Now, Nancy waited outside, but the man did not come out. Eventually, getting tired of waiting, she banged on the door, which swung open. Nancy looked inside, but the bathroom was empty. Nancy's Aunt Lizzie lived across the hall from her. Lizzie's son, Henry, had died in the room sometime in the past. One day, Lizzie came home from work and found the door locked. She used her key, but could not get the door to open. Finally, in a temper, Lizzie cried out, "Henry, you open this door right now." Slowly, the doorknob turned on its own, and the door swung open. She seemed to think Henry was trying to play with her. Now, the Arbona building. I do have personal experiences with things at the Arbona building. When I was curator of exhibits for the Pensacola Historical Society, I would work late in the evening on exhibits in this building. One night, I was sitting on the floor in the downstairs gallery working on an exhibit when something whispered into my neck very slightly and quietly, "Wendi." I immediately called my husband and ran out the door and said I was leaving for the night. Numerous times the elevator door would open and close for me. We kept it locked on the first floor when we locked up for the night, and in the mornings I would have to open the second floor. I'd have to enter the elevator, and the door would close on me right before I stepped in. The Arbona family built the current building in 1885. The first building was built 9 years before that, and then it burned. The first floor was the saloon, and the family lived on the second floor. Now, as I mentioned, saloon life was difficult. Eugenio and Fanny Arbona soon divorced. He returned to Spain and in 1890 committed suicide. Fanny and her children kept the saloon going during the bustling 1900s. The saloon run by Joseph, the youngest Arbona son, until 1896 when he opened his own saloon, the Tennessee Saloon on Intendencia Street. When Joseph left, the eldest son Eugene took over. He and his sister Fanny lived out the rest of their lives in the Arbona building. She died in 1935 and he in 1944. And that's when grocer T.T. Todd bought the building. During the renovations, a skeleton was found in the yard. Victim of a bar fight? Who knows? But for 20-something years, visitors to the Pensacola Historical Museum reported strange experiences. Some would flee the second floor, too uncomfortable to remain up there. Volunteers had seen children who weren't there walk past their desks. Purse straps would be pulled, boxes moved. Just look how scared these girls are. This is actually one of our tour guides playing with these girls before the tours one night. Now, in 2009, the museum hosted Sci-Fi Channel's Ghost Hunters. Staff spent the night outside the museum while the crew filmed inside. A few times, a crew member would run outside and check their monitors. Another time, there was a really loud racket from the museum. Unfortunately, the crew didn't get any evidence on camera, but it was still a very good time. Our next ghost story is the story of Dolores and Pauline Charbonnet. The Charbonnet house was built in 1850. Antonio and Catherine Charbonnet had 4 children: Dolores, Pauline, Frank, and Joseph. Catherine died soon after moving into the house, leaving 12-year-old Dolores to care for the house. Years later, Antonio had to commit his son Joseph to the state mental hospital twice for lunacy due to advanced stage syphilis. Antonio suffered a stroke and lingered in the house for 6 years before he died. Frank was the next to die. He succumbed to yellow fever just a few years later. Joseph passed away while committed to the asylum. The 2 sisters were left alone. Pauline was soon engaged, but unfortunately was literally left at the altar. Sensitive Pauline couldn't handle the hurt and public humiliation, and she too had to be declared incompetent. The 2 sisters continued to live out their lives in the family home, dying in the house just as their mother, father, and brother. They are buried in the family crypt at St. Michael's. The house was left to deteriorate. So, in 1978, the JCs used the Charbonnet house for a haunted house fundraiser. The house was decorated with Halloween garb. While the group was preparing the house, strange noises came from throughout the house. Lights flickered on and off, and locked doors, flew open to shock the volunteers. One volunteer decided to bring out a Ouija board. The fun soon turned to fright when the group chanted, "Speak to us, O ghost of Charbonnet House," and an Arctic blast whipped through the room. Most frightening of all was the message the board kept spelling out. Get the child. Get the child was repeatedly spelled out over and over. Get the child. Get the child. Get the child. The parents of the child quickly grabbed the child and did leave. The stories of the house continued years later when a woman and her son moved into the house. Almost immediately, the son began to see the ghost of a Victorian lady. At first, he could see through her. Then she took a more solid form. She even spoke to him. They'd have short conversations. She asked, "Are you the little boy that lives here?" From then on, the boy and the ghost would have short conversations. She told him her name was Pauline Charbonnet and that there was a room in the house that was bad, very bad. It was the room of her brother Joseph. She told the man to stay out of that room. When questioned about her reaction to the JCs, she responded that she didn't like their tone. They wanted a ghost, so she gave them a ghost. But she was concerned for the child and wanted to protect it. Now, as I mentioned, we've been doing these tours. This year was our 35th year of doing our ghost tours. So people love to share what they have experienced on our tours. And that's how we've gotten a lot of our stories, is people will come on the tours and share their experiences, and then we will research them to see if we can figure out the rationale. So these are some photographs from our tour takers. Now this a visitor captured is a face in the window after hearing the story of Thomas Muristo. Another visitor captured this image at the Door House. This was in 2009. She related that there were 2 lights on in the windows. One of them is the flash. The next one to it looks like the shape of a person's face. This visitor captured this in Plaza Ferdinand. She says if you look to the left, you will see a car in the street. Look by the headlights. Right next to it, there's a tree. And if you look into the tree where the greenery would start, there's a face in it that looks really, really sad and distraught. Now, I have to look really hard to see some of these. This one, the person said, look for the Great Street sign. Now look to the left of it. Where that line is coming down, there's a man standing to the left, and he looks really, really angry. And I admit, I have a very hard time sometimes seeing what visitors have captured. Other people have experienced hearing music, smelling cookies, smelling the pipe smoke, or a musty smell. One woman said she saw a man in a zoot suit on Palafox Street just outside of O'Reilly's. At the time, it was not O'Reilly's, but there had been a barber shop right there, and to her, she felt the man had just stepped out of the barber shop. Many have had cold chills and then taken aback, the hairs on their arms raised. As I mentioned, I've heard my name whispered. Doors have closed, boxes have moved. I've seen shadow figures in the Museum of History. I've heard the children laugh in the stairwells of the Museum of History. As I mentioned, Pensacola has a lot of ghosts, and these are just a few of the stories shared with us over the years. I just wanted to tell you that these tours that like I've said, we've done 35 years, are a fundraiser for the UWF Historic Trust. We are a nonprofit as well as a direct support organization of the university, and the funds raised go into our operating and programming budgets so that we can continue to collect, preserve, interpret, and share the history of Northwest Florida. These tours are presented by our volunteer tour guides who love sharing Pensacola's haunted history. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Alrighty, thank you, Wendy. That was just awesome. Do we have questions from anybody in the room? Has anybody had any experiences? Have you gone downtown and gone on one of these tours and had some experience you want to share? Anybody on Zoom? Do you all have any questions or anything you'd like to share?
I will say one more thing, just because we did something different this year. So as I mentioned, we've done these for 35 years. This year we did something different. Instead of just going around and talking on the outside, we actually went into several of our buildings for our ghost tours. So we did the haunted history museums that went through the Arbona building and the Museum of History. And then we did Haunted History Village, which went through the Door House, Old Christ Church, and the Leah Rocheblave House. And several people did experience things this year going inside, and it really takes it to a different dynamic when you are able to go inside. So we might keep doing that. It was quite fun.
Are the houses that you used for the haunted tours at night the same ones that like people can visit throughout the day as well? Not for like the haunted purposes, but I've taken a couple of tours downtown and I can't remember the houses I've been to. But I don't know if I ever accidentally stepped into one of those.
Yes, if you went through and did our public tour during the day, those do go into the Door House, the Lear House, Old Christ Church, and the Lavallee House. So I did mention a few of those. Some of the houses I mentioned, like the Ghost of Thomas Maristo or the Charbonnet House, are not any of our properties. They are in other parts of downtown. So yes, you potentially did go through one of the buildings or a few of them that I mentioned, but the others are private residences.
I think I saw somebody raise a hand on Zoom. If you can unmute yourself or you can put it in the or the chat box, either way. Okay. So let's see. I read about UWF self-guided smartphone tour. Is that yours, and can you do it via iPhone? Specifically, is that a ghost tour?
I'm not familiar with that. No, it wouldn't be a ghost tour, or if it is, it's not one that I am familiar with. So I could look into it, but I'm not sure about that.
Any other questions or thoughts or experiences, or anybody feeling inspired to go on a ghost tour tonight? Yeah.
Tonight, actually, tonight and tomorrow night. So beyond the ghost tours that we do, we also do what we call Talking to the Dead, the Victorian seance. So tonight and tomorrow night, we are doing that at the Barclay House. It highlights and talks about the theatrics of Victorian spiritualism. So it's another way that we raise funds. It's quite fun. It's very interesting to see people's takes on spiritualism.
And we got another one in the room. Yeah, so with Pensacola having such a long and complicated history, it sounds like a lot of the ghost stories are more from like the late 1800s, early 1900s. Do you have any reports of ghost stories that maybe are ghosts from an older era?
Um, no, not that I'm familiar with. The ones in our that we have researched over the years are all from around that same time period. Um, I'm just trying to remember specifics if there's anything. Mainly, yeah, nothing earlier. I'm trying to remember if anyone's mentioned anything later, but no. Um, they're all that around that time period. There's always I saw someone in Victorian clothing kind of response sometimes on our tours. And it may just mean that they don't really realize fashion history and they're just putting it in that time period. But yeah, I can't think of anything earlier.
You reject? I can't, okay. Yeah. So kind of follow up to that one, Wendy, do you think, because obviously the Victorians, like you just mentioned, were very dramatic at times when it came to their beliefs in the spirit world. Do you think that there is some kind of a connection between their practice and spiritualism in life and if they come back as a ghost in death?
Um, that's a good point. Something I did not mention, and this is from a later time, and I want to say they lived on Government Street. So Mr. Mack and his wife Roberta lived on, I think it was Government Street in the 50s, but she was an automatic writer, and he was, and she was a medium, one of the other, but they kept notebooks full of notebooks um, with what ghosts and who they spoke to when they would do seances in the house. Um, and in his notebooks, he's got people, well-known people, like he had kings and queens he claimed came to speak to him, or Roberta or Bert, what she went by. But and then it was everyday people. So it wasn't really stuck in that whole Victorian time period. I didn't even think about this when that question came up. But it could, that the whole spiritualism isn't just in the Victorian period. Yeah, it was the height of it. But I mean, isn't there that town down in Central Florida that's full of spiritualists still? Like Dan Aykroyd's family, I think, are really big spiritualists. So it's not like just the Victorians, it was then and stopped. I think it's been ongoing, but yeah, I don't know.
Thank you. Any other questions, Eddie? No, okay, well, if y'all can join me in giving Wendy one more round of applause.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate you also allowing me to do this virtually. As I mentioned, we do have our seance this evening, and it works so much better. And I apologize. I talk with my hands a lot, so I've been trying not to do that in front of y'all. So I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. We really appreciate you two and you. This was awesome. So hopefully some of you might go downtown and participate in some of the historic trust events that are happening over the next weekend, or the next couple of days rather. And as I lost my thought. So next week, we are going to be hearing from two of our bioanthropology instructors. So they are gonna come in and talk to us a little bit about their field and how they can look at different skeletons and how they can just determine a lot of different things based on just bones. So it's gonna be really fun. For those of you on Zoom, that is gonna be the one and only session this semester that is not recorded. So, you know, if you want to see it, you'll have to be here live. So hopefully, y'all will be back next week and y'all have, hopefully have a good weekend with Halloween and everything. So thank y'all so much. Yeah. You stop.